honestly, alcohol is completely to thank for that entire situation.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I'm sure anyone listening can attest to having to see a band live, maybe only once, because maybe they're not a band that's touring super actively at the time that you're in hardcore. But the impact that they leave off of that set still sticks with you to this day. And that's kind of the theme, at least to intro my guest today, which is Dan from King 9. I still remember vividly when King 9 came up through Calgary to play Wild Rose in 2019. And I think, Dan, you have been someone that I thought about hitting up for a while to be on the pod. And it's funny because we were going to do this interview before FYA and had to do a bit of a rescheduling. And I feel like there's, obviously if you've been on the internet, you've seen the King 9 TV, crucifixion. So I'm stoked to chat about the band and also all things, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I have a weird soft spot for Calgary. So shout out to all of our friends from Calgary. And I do, being the fact that you brought up Wild Rose is, I was talking about earlier today, how much I enjoyed playing Wild Rose and how I felt like we were like a band that like nobody would be like, oh yeah, they'll play Calgary. But the reality is as soon as we get asked to play anywhere where we were like, it's kind of different and weird, we're like, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
And it was awesome. I'm super happy we got to do that.
Yeah, there's definitely moments from that set as I rewatched it this morning that I want to, I guess, dig a little deeper on and have new. There's some nuances that I think would be cool to touch on. But before we chat any music things, we have to check a bev before we get into the episode. So tell me what you got and why you got what you got.
I have a Colombian pour over from my local coffee shop, Kinship in Astoria, Queens, and I got it because I'm tired. And it just tastes great.
Yes, I think before we were recording officially, when I was asking how Dan's day was going, he was like, "I've done fucking nothing." So starting the coffee and doing this podcast is a good move.
Yeah.
Do you have just because where you're from, do you have a surplus of different coffee locations? I'm sure it's I don't know what the ratio is from third wave stuff to just gas station ash water, but anything you want to share as far as your locale.
So where I live in Astoria, there is two legit coffee shops, just coffee shops. One is about 3 blocks away and the other is about 5 or 6 blocks away. Mm-hmm. And then there's 7 or 8 bagel shop coffee. No, it's not really good coffee, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And I specifically walk past everything to go to my coffee shop, Kinship, because it's fucking awesome. And also because I pretty much run into Mike Dijon every day, and we bullshit for a little bit. Mike Dijon, who played in Crown of Thorns and Breakdown, and
okay, cool,
yeah, he's been in a million bands, but Mike's the fucking man, and I always just go down there and grab a coffee. I usually see him, and we bullshit for a minute, and then I head back home.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing him regularly because he's also a Kinship fan? He's just going there all the time as well.
Yeah, I mean he lives down the street, so okay. we both just end up going there all the time too. So it's kind of funny how many people in hardcore, New York hardcore, older dudes, still live in this neighborhood. Dijon lives over here. Demi, who plays drums in Crown of Thorns, lives another 2 blocks away. AJ Novella, who played guitar in Leeway, lives 4 blocks that way. Everybody lives in this fucking area. So it's funny, if you know who you're looking for, you'll run into somebody every fucking day.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. There's almost like there needs to be like a New York hardcore like coffee meetup of some kind, of all the different
Dude,
generations.
I don't know how many people know this, but Astoria was like a hotbed for hardcore in the 80s and 90s. Like tons and tons of bands came out of here,
Mhm.
and there was a ton of hardcore kids here. And the thing always was, I always heard this, and I always tried it since I was a kid, was the last car on the N train. If you're getting on the N train in Queens, go to the last car because that's where all the hardcore kids go. So you would
Oh,
go
okay.
on to like get in the last car and you'd see somebody you knew or maybe a few people you know or whatever. But that was always like the thing, like
Hmm.
last car of the N train. That's where all the hardcore kids are in Astoria.
Okay. That's a very cool little Astoria hardcore lore bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've already had my morning coffee, so having two back-to-back coffees with that small amount of time can be a little funky for me. So I'm drinking something that's kind of still has some caffeine, but is more like the sparkling water category. So this is my first time having this as well. So it's called Wake Water. I found this at the grocery store. So it's like a caffeinated sparkling water, grapefruit flavored, which anyone who's been following this season of the show, I've been on a grapefruit kick lately. So that's what I'm going to be drinking.
So you gotta be careful, man. Grapefruit cancels out medications.
Oh,
So if you're on medication, don't fucking drink anything with grapefruit in it because the medication will stop working.
why is that? Is it just the
I have
acidity
no
is
fucking
so
idea.
wild?
No, it's like it's something to do with like some sort of receptors or I don't fucking know. But my the guitar player in my band is a pharmacist and he fucking tells us that all the time. So I just
Wow.
trust what he says.
So
He's making it
we're
up.
learning about Astoria hardcore lore as well as medical facts within like
Yeah.
5 minutes of this pod. I love that. Well, Dan, cheers to you, my friend. Really excited to do this.
Cheers, bro.
Of course. Speaking of fruits, which was funny, I was going to bring this up in the intro as well. I think I just had a brain fart when I was reaching out to you originally, and I saw your Instagram name, and I was like, well, there's no way Strawberry is his last name, and I just assumed your name was Daryl. But I've like listened to other things. I was like, oh, why did I fuck that up? But do you just like heavily fuck with strawberries, or was that just like an inside joke?
Daryl Strawberry is the best Mets hitter to ever exist.
Oh, okay.
So that's why my name is Daryl Strawberry because he's like my favorite Met of all time.
So he's an actual person.
Yeah, Daryl Strawberry is a real person, and he was on the 1986 Mets when they won the World Series,
Wow.
and he was fucking awesome.
What a legendary last name. Mr.
Yeah,
Strawberry.
seriously, he's fucking awesome.
That's very awesome. So Dan, like we talked a little bit before recording officially. Like you've checked out like a number of different episodes of this. From all the way the fact that you listened to Evan McIsaac's episode, which was like episode 9, and we're like almost near 250 now, is crazy to me. But
Shout out Evan. I have
shout
to shout out. I have to stop you. Shout out Evan.
shout out Evan. Unofficial. Was the unofficial inclination singer for a while, for one set. But I always like to get a bit of context about how people just got into hardcore in general. So take me back in time to like the first, moments that you were hearing heavy music, hardcore, however you want to spin it.
So I have okay. So there's two things. I have an older brother. He's 7 years older than me. Well, six and a little bit, but he was into like heavier music, hardcore, when he was younger, when
Right.
he was like, 18 years old. He introduced me to a lot of stuff. He introduced me to a lot of like local Long Island bands that didn't people may not have known at the time, and some that obviously people knew. Like he introduced me to VOD and stuff like that. But he did introduce me to a lot. But funny enough, the way that I first heard hardcore is the dumbest. It's so stupid. I was a little kid and I saw Clueless, the movie. I was like 7 or 8 and I saw Clueless.
Hmm.
And in Clueless, Mighty Mighty Boss Stones are playing, and they're like, whatever. Dickie Barrett like stage dives in it, and I was like, that's so cool. I just thought it was cool.
Right.
So I found out who the band was in it, and I was like super into Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, but I didn't own any CDs or anything like that. And on my birthday that year, I asked for a Mighty Mighty Boss Tones CD, and the CD that got bought for me was called it's a single called "Scott Core the Devil and a Whole Lot More," and it's one Mighty Mighty Boss Tones track, and then 4 or 5 covers, and it's like a Minor Threat cover, an SSD cover, an Angry Samoans cover, and something else that I'm forgetting.
Hmm.
But that is actually the first time I heard hardcore because I'm fucking like 8 or 9 years old or whatever it is, and I'm listening to this CD that's like SSD Angry Samoans. I have no fucking clue what I'm listening to,
Right.
but that like kind of set me up to be like, oh, this is the kind of music I like. I like this, and then like just like progressed into more stuff as I got older, and then my brothers started showing me a lot of stuff, and then it kind of just went from there, really.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I've heard you tell the story before, but I think what's interesting to me and a huge reason of why I asked this question is that I don't think that there's any one way for people to discover this shit. Like a very similar thing that I'm sure there's some people who are listening is like maybe they were first listening to like Cannibal Corpse because they watched Ace Ventura and they're playing in one of those movies. So I love hearing like it's cool to see, and you don't see it really much anymore of like hardcore or just heavy music like plugged into like movies and those kind of things, but it clearly has an impact.
I think that you definitely don't see it anymore, but I have a strong feeling we're going to start seeing it again, like
Hmm.
heavier music and just like hardcore in general being involved in a lot more popular culture shit. And
Right.
whether it's like the turnstile effect or whatever the fuck you want to call it, um, I think that like this mix of COVID and turnstile and like all this shit all like together has somehow made hardcore into like a more mainstream thing now, which is, there's bad to it and there's good to it.
Right.
You're gonna get a good amount of bad at it, but you're gonna get a lot of actual kids who like identify with the music and are like, this is something that I care about, and they stay with it for the rest of their lives.
Right.
So who knows? I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do think that that whole thing of like heavy music being involved in popular culture is like coming back around.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah,
see, I
yeah,
guess.
I think like, the argument there, like I don't think anything is like 100% absolute when it comes to being either good or bad. I think there's a lot of gray area, and there's probably things that the majority of it is good or bad, but I don't think that you can just blindly say, Turnstile being on a late night show or being able to play um with Blink, because like my wife's a big like Kardashians fan, and I'm just like I'm waiting for the Kardashians episode where they're like on tour with Travis
Yeah,
Barker and there's seeing Brendan and all these people stage diving, and I know that's gonna
yeah,
have an impact, good or bad, I don't know, but I'm at least i- interested and intrigued to see how it plays out long term, because I think we're just at the
yeah.
tip of the iceberg of all this.
I think we are too, and I think that like you know, man, it really is a weird couple of years. I think.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to say too much because uh whatever, but like we're playing a show coming up in April, and a very strange organization hit us up to
Okay.
come to the show. I don't want to like say too
Sure.
much,
Yeah, yeah.
but the fact that they're doing this is like, oh, so you want like millions of people to see this hardcore show?
Okay.
It's odd.
That
Yeah, I'm sure by the time that show comes around in April, somebody will see something and whatever. But like, it's fucking odd. It's
okay.
it's definitely weird.
Well, if that's not the Charlie Brown like pulling the football tease, I don't know what is, but that sounds very exciting regardless. Talk to me about like the origin of King Nine, because I was listening to your Hard Lord podcast as well as your I think it's Angel and Z interview
Yeah,
a
yeah,
year or so ago. But what was interesting to me from doing my research is that like you just correct the record. You are the original vocalist, but like you weren't at the very beginning stages of the band.
Yeah, so the band like existed in some weird like where we played at a practice space together once,
Sure.
and this is the group, but it like really wasn't. It was just like a few people playing, and like
Sure.
they kind of just like filtered through people
Hmm.
to get to the a real lineup. And Rudder, our drummer, who's an extremely old friend of mine, I've known him since I was, I don't know, 14 years old or something like that, 15 years old. He hit me up and was like, "Hey, I'm doing this band. Like, do you want to sing in it?" And he sent me like a couple practice based recordings, and I was like, one of which was actually, if I'm thinking right, one of which was No Dreams, because they had already written that song before I was like ever in the band. Um, and I was like, yeah, sure. So went, practiced with them. We didn't really practice. We didn't do anything. We saw. We played a couple Terror covers, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then we progressed and wrote songs. And at the time, the band was Gian, Lumpy, Rudder, and then like a rotating cast of like who's bass and who's
Sure.
singing and whatever. But as soon as I got in the band, then it became like a concrete like, okay, I'm singing in this band. This is our band.
Sure.
And then after that, Nick came in, our original bass player. And then he was like a concrete member of the band. And then that was like the band. And then we wrote music, played our first shows, all that stuff after that.
Right. Yeah. It's I feel like there's a certain point when you realize like, okay, this is like day one of this band. Even if we've had multiple weeks or months of like random little jams like that.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
yeah, but it is cool to hear how it was like probably an original member by proxy either way, but it's just kind of a weird thing. It was like, you coming into the picture was like, okay, now we're like let's start to like pave a way.
Yeah, I think part of it was the fact that didn't they had people who had like been in bands and stuff like that and whatever, and like they played like locally and whatever it was. But I think that it was part of the fact that I was like, I had been in a band that toured. I was like in a more active band than anybody they had asked to be in it before.
Hmm.
So it became like oh, okay, this is the right person for this. And then Nick joined the band, was in Backtrack and stuff like that for short periods of time. Like he had also been in like a real band that toured and all that stuff. So yeah, I think that's like kind of what sealed the deal.
Yeah. What was funny that I heard that you were you were mentioning that the name of the band King Nine comes from a Twilight Zone episode, but there's been lots of people that have either mentioned to you or asked about, is that just off of like a poker hand or something like that? And I think you
Yeah,
said on one of the interviews like, I wouldn't name like a hardcore band off of a shitty poker hand. So my question
yeah,
is,
terrible.
what is the best poker hand that you could name a hardcore band off
Dude, I have no idea. I mean, oh my God, this is such an insane question. So there's a hand that I love to play. I love to play Queen 10 off. I have no fucking idea why. I have no, like, it just feels good to have.
of?
I have no
Okay.
fucking clue why. But to name a hardcore band, I have no fucking clue. It'd have to be some terrible hand that's like, oh yeah, life sucks. This is
Right.
also a shitty band. It makes sense for a hardcore
Sure.
band.
Queen 10 sounds like the perfect alter ego side project to King 9, so
Yeah, yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
when we eventually have a new wave band, it'll definitely be called that.
Queen 10. Okay, gotcha. Trademark it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, sometimes my brain goes to these like super obscure questions that I'm sure you've never been asked, but like, you kind of said that. I was like, well, what would be the best hand? Like naming a band Full House, it probably like it doesn't have
yeah.
a lot of that because it's like,
It's
you're thinking of the TV show at that point.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. There's like I feel like Craps would be better because it has all these goofy little nicknames for craps rolls. Like a hard four is a Lil Joe. It's like it's goofy shit like that that I feel like would sound better for a hardcore band.
Mm. So the worser the hand, the cooler the name potentially.
I would think, right? But 2 7 off sounds stupid. That doesn't even sound like a band.
Yes. But yeah, just a little early goof that I wanted to throw at you to pick your brain. In the midst of like King Nine starting, like I know an earlier part of your hardcore journey that you mentioned was you jumped in a van with Terror when you were like 17 years old. So was the King Nine stuff post this kind of like Terror adventures, or was that at the same time?
No, so my first real band was a band called Mind Piece.
Hmm.
We were like super short lived, but in 2007, so fucking Jesus Christ, 16 years ago, um, my band Mind Piece did a tour with Terror. Terror hit us up on MySpace and we're like, hey, we're gonna do like 10 Northeast shows. Do you guys want to do it with us and whatever? And we were like, of course, of course. You know,
Yes.
I had just finished high school. I was still 17, but I was done with high school, and yeah, so we did that tour with them. That was the first real tour I ever did, and it was 10 days, and I like couldn't believe how fucking cool it was. So as soon as that tour was done, Terror was going into a Chimera Cataclysm tour, and I was just like, "Yo, is there like anything I can do, like to just hop in the van?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." So I fucking just went on the rest of that tour. It was like a month long, I think,
Mm.
and yeah, I like semi helped drum teching. I like helped do like whatever bullshit, but I just wanted to be on tour.
Mm.
And then after that, a couple of years after that is when I like actually worked for Terror, and then I was working for Terror for the next like 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, but that was all. My Piece was a band, and then I was in the van with Terror for a while, and uh then I toured it for a little while. I wasn't in any band. Mind Piece ended. There was nothing I was really a part of. And then during my last year, my last like year and a half with Terror, King Nine started, and
Got you.
then
Okay.
I stopped touring with Terror, and then obviously like King Nine has been a band since then. So
Hmm. So was that like early, formative years being 17 or early 20s at that point, but like how much do you credit that time in your life, or taking that chance of being like, I can ask, but are they gonna say yes? Like how pivotal was that for you to where you are right now?
I mean, honestly, I don't. I definitely wouldn't. It's cliche to say, but I would not be the same person.
Hmm.
I spent 7.5 or almost 8 years of my life touring after that, and like I it's led me up to everything I have basically. Like almost all my friendships, my fucking everything I do is because I decided, oh well, I've been going to college for a month and I'm just gonna fucking drop out and fuck this. And I just went on tour.
Right.
So it's like everything I have really does like relate back to that because I have no idea what the hell I would be doing if I didn't do those tours.
Hmm. Um, yeah, like I think a question I have is like, you're touring super, super heavily, and now you're at a stage in your life where maybe that isn't as much the same. And, like, like King Nine will still do like, little one off things, play fests, but it's not like, oh, we're going to, maybe it's not at a stage where you can tour for like 2 months straight. Nor do bands necessarily do that most of the time nowadays, anyways. So, like, is that something when, because we have people from ages like 15 to like 40 that listen to this podcast, as far as what the analytics tell me. But like, do you think that's that, like putting those years of your life in that kind of uncomfortable of spaces, like would you recommend that to like really anyone? if they have the
I,
option to do so.
I have to be honest, especially if you care about hardcore or punk or whatever music. If you have the option to go on tour, you absolutely should do it. There should, unless it's going to ruin your life. I I I absolutely think you should do it because you're getting this opportunity that no one gets. That is, it's like a foreign world. Like I'm an iron worker now, right? I do structural iron. I talk to a lot of guys that have been doing that since they're 18, 20 years old. They didn't really have any of these experiences in their life previous to ironworking. They just fucking ironwork. And that's fine. But when I talk to them and we fucking, talk about stories and they ask me about all this shit, they're like, wow, like you lived like a full life already. And then you got into ironworking. And it's like, I just toured with a bunch of dumbass bands for like 7 years, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
but it does like, dude, I got to travel all over the world. I got to go to places that people never get to go to. I got paid to do it. I fucking, it's there is nothing like it. There's nothing like it. You just are in a van with your friends for months on end. And there's times we hate each other and whatever, and but there is nothing cooler than that. There really is nothing fucking cooler than
Yeah.
that. So yeah, if you're young, if you're old, whatever, if you get the opportunity to do it, even if it's a week or 2 weeks, go do it because it's going to be some of the best times of your life, no matter what.
I don't think I've ever heard from, necessarily a normie's perspective of going on tour for like, like let's say like 5-ish or 5+ years, feel like it's almost like, oh, you've lived a full life. Cause it's like, yeah, to anyone else, it's like I might get my 2 weeks of vacation here or there to be able to, do a Cancun thing or whatever. But like being able to like go to the really cool places, but also go to the places that you like. I never thought I would be in like the deep south, but I'm here playing shows and finding
Yeah.
cool places and things to take away from that is very interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, there is so many things that it's just like you don't really like connect the dots to it. But it's like, yeah, I went to Macedonia with Terror. We played the second hardcore show ever there. And it's
Ever.
like
Wow. Okay.
ever, yeah. It was
Who was the first? Do you
the
know who the first was?
yeah, it was like 6 months before that. It was Sick of It All.
Oh,
Sick of
okay.
It All played there, and Terror played there. And like it probably wasn't the second hardcore show ever, but it was like the second time a touring band had ever been there.
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's like, whatever, they just didn't get that. But it's like, I don't know anybody that's been to Macedonia. Why the hell do people go there? You know what I mean? Not in like a disrespectful way, but it's like, unless you have family from there or whatever, like, what's the purpose of you going to Macedonia? Unless you
Right.
want to see the birthplace of Mother Teresa. That's all I can think of. So it's like, you get these opportunities to do these things, and like, yeah, maybe you're not going to go on tour and go to fucking Macedonia, but you're going to go on tour and you're going to go to these places and you're going to meet these people and you're going to have friendships that you make for the rest of your life just because you're going on tour. I
Yeah.
mean, dude, fucking Andy Cookta plays in a band currently called Mongrel, who's awesome.
Hmm.
But Andy played in Internal Affairs and lives in California. I met Andy the first time Mind Piece ever went to California. I think I was eight. I just turned 18 or something like that. And I don't see Andy often, but I saw Andy. We played with Mongrel in San Diego like a month ago. And I saw Andy and I was like, dude, what's up? Like, he's my friend. He's been my friend for over 15 years now because I just fucking played out there and stayed at his house.
Right.
It's normal people never have that experience. They'll never be able to like replicate something like that. And they won't
Right.
get it. And I expect them to get it. But if you have the opportunity to experience those things and go on tour and make friends and do all that shit, even just traveling to a fucking fest, you know what I mean? It's, think about it. I went to we played Calgary, right? We played Wild Rose.
Hmm.
I have friends I made at Wild Rose and friends in Calgary now that I'll know for fucking ever.
Hmm.
And it's like, it's just because you're doing these things and we have this like bond through hardcore that doesn't exist in the normal world.
Yeah. I always like have to remind myself and pinch myself a little bit off of like the fact that when you make friends in hardcore, you kind of put that like overwhelming trust and like friendship
Yeah.
up front. Like, and you could just bond over like the fact that like, you know, you're wearing a similar band shirt or something like that, or like a band that both of you like, but you like, oh, you need a place to sleep on my floor. And you know,
Dude,
I totally
absolutely.
echo the exact same thing, whether, you know, getting maybe you're not getting the opportunities to tour, but you're also can create those opportunities for yourself if you're smart about it. Like, you know, like you can we see more than ever now that like it doesn't need to be like a booking person. Like the fact that Tsunami is doing their like North American tour in a couple months, but it's fully booked DIY. There's no middleman in between. It's like that shit is like really really cool to see. So yeah, I totally agree. Like off of the point as well, off of like I never had if future me traveled back in time and told me you're gonna make a ton of friends from Oklahoma and you're gonna go to this fest and play there, I'd be like, why the fuck would I do that? But it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I have great friends there still to this day that I talk to on the weekly. So
Yeah.
it's wild. And
Dude,
for
yeah.
whatever you do profession wise, everyone else is like, wait, what? Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't connect.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Like, I to your point, like I have a whole handful of friends in Poland that I've been talking to that I met probably 15 years or yeah, like maybe whatever 13, 14 years ago, and I talk to them all the time.
Hmm.
Like it's not a normal thing. It's not a thing that other people will ever understand.
Hmm. So, looking kind of just like jumping back to like the King Nine stuff. So, um, you know, you've talked on like some other podcasts about like how even in like the early days, like you had a handful of friends that were like almost like going off extra hard at like the early shows to have people be like, "Whoa, who is this King Nine character?" And like, why should we, you know? But you know, as far as like releases, like you know, like Death Rattle was put out like I guess 5 years it is like
Technically, yeah, yeah,
technically, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it's wild to see off of that, and then like some of the other like EPs and things that you guys have put out. You still have been able to like you know play large fests, like have crazy responses, like all the videos I saw at FYA. Um, with what's on the horizon, because there was a little bit that you shared on the Hardlore podcast as far as you know
Yeah.
dropping uh dose EPs this year, which I that's public knowledge that I can share.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I don't give a shit. I'm saying it so that it happens. The
Okay.
more I say it, the more we're forced to do it.
Yeah. So like with that amount of time, like has there been like just a lot of fine tuning in between Death Rattle to like, you know, the stuff that's coming out now? Or has it just been like taking your time as you please?
I really think it's just been like us taking our time. I don't think there's been like ever like all of us have like careers at this point, you know?
Hmm.
Everybody in the band has something that they do full time that they have to do. So we're never like, like, oh, let's get together and do this. Like we just want to do what's fun to us and
Hmm.
what's cool to us because what the fuck is the point in doing anything else? You know what I mean? So like, we came up with this idea to do the records like this and we're just doing it because we think it's like, yeah, it's just gonna be cool. Like
Hmm.
fuck it, it's just be fun. And like we're gonna record, whenever we do and there's no like agenda for anything we have. There's no fucking rhyme or reason why we're doing anything. There never has been. And I think it's the best way to do it because I mean shit, what like there used to be this thing in hardcore where bands would follow like the very strict like every 2 years you got to have a record out, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to, and it's just like that's cool and all I guess if you're a full-time touring band and you're making a living off of it, but like who gives a shit? Just do whatever, man. Like do what the fuck ever you want. If you
Hmm.
want to record one record and play 10,000 shows off of it, just fucking do it. Like there should be no reason that you got to like do anything like by a formula,
Hmm.
you know? I think too, like the less you do it by a formula, the more success you're gonna have because it's confusing to people. Being like, why the fuck is King Nine gonna put out 2 EPs in a year? And I'm like, because who fucking cares? What does it even matter?
Right. Yeah, and I think if anything it keeps people on their toes a little bit. I would rather be on my toes about a band versus like, oh yeah, 2 years, something's probably coming down the pipe, and here's the single
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
music video. Like, I love that Knocked Loose like put out 2 records after they were signed, and then dropped like arguably their best material as an EP. Like I love that to be able to like flip it on its head. And I love especially like through Flat Spot, like when bands are getting signed, like just doing like EPs that if anything, it's like all the fat is like cut away from it and it's just like the most tender of music to chew on.
Well, that I think is the other thing is like, when you're in the process of writing an LP, and I think I said this on Hardlore too, like there is a level of mediocrity that you're willing to accept
Hmm.
because you're like, well, we need 10 songs, we need 11 songs. So you're just like, yeah, this one's fine, put it on. And it's like, that's all well and good, I guess. Sometimes those songs will end up being somebody's favorite song, and that's cool. But like, man, why not just like cut it down and be like, you know what? We wrote 10 songs. Here's the 3 best ones, and that's all you're gonna hear.
Right.
Because you put out those 3 songs and it's like, holy shit, these are 3 incredible songs that this band wrote.
Hmm.
And that's it. That's the only thing on this record. And I think it's a cool idea too. I think it really is a way to trim the fat on a lot of records
Yeah.
for that matter.
Yeah. There is someone that said once to me that, your band could put out like a meh EP, and like if it just doesn't hit, or, the already established fan base that you have, like that's easy enough, but if you put out like a bad full length, then it's almost like game over to a degree.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
like that is such a feat, and like we see bands nowadays that like put out that like full length that actually changes the trajectory of that band. Like I think like California Curse by Drain is like the album that like changed everything for them. And it was those like the 2 song promo that they had prior to that where I was like, "Oh, like," and that band like there's cult fans of like the older material, but that was the record that like, okay, now we're like, now we're nitro is like in the engine now, and it's like shooting us off into the moon. So
Yeah.
it's a feat that I think every musician should try to tackle, whether you're in a huge band or small band, but easier said than done, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, especially like if you've never done it, yeah, it probably is worth it to try to write an LP. And it's like for us specifically, like we wrote 2 LPs. Um, and especially with the way hardcore is received right now, like, fuck it. We'll just do an EP. You guys don't have an attention span to listen to a goddamn half-hour long LP anyways. So
Right.
we'll just fucking here's 15, 12 minutes of music, and we'll give you another 12 or 15 minutes of music fucking somewhere down the line and
Right.
fucking whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think trying to write an LP is like an important thing for a band to try to do.
Yeah.
It's a definitely something that's like a to hold some pride in.
Yeah.
Like, you writing LP is not easy. It's very fucking hard. So
Right.
there is some pride mixed into that.
I'll leave the person's name and band name out of this. But I was having coffee with a friend whose band is on Triple B, and they have like a full length that they need to put out as far as and I feel like that's not like Sam is pretty. I've heard through multiple interviews where bands who are on Triple B, it's like, yeah, I'll put this EP or demo out, but just let's do a full length together as well. That's a part
Yeah.
of like the gentleman's agreement, if you want to call it that. And this person said to me, is like, I'm like, oh, are you going to do like 10 songs? Because when I think LP, I think 10 songs. And they're like, well, we're going to just figure out whatever the least amount of songs that we need to write. And so it's like, it just pushes over from the EP to LP, like song length, but it might be like 8 songs. But I'm like, you
It's
know,
7.
it's 7. It's 7.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
7.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
7 is the number.
okay. So if you're, if you want to rise to the challenge of writing an LP, you only need to write 7 songs versus
Yeah,
10 or
and
12.
true. You could feasibly do 2 songs that are like interludes and whatever.
Intros,
You could make
outros.
7 songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. You don't really have to like be honest about it. You know, you can bullshit your way.
Right. I want to jump back to Wild Rose that we were talking as far as like when you guys were playing up here. Um, Out of all the sets that I saw that day, that like I said in the intro, that was one that really like stuck with me. You know, as hard as like people were going off, there was just like a first off, playing in that venue or just being in that venue in general is just like um it's like a sauna. It's so hot. Like so
Oh yeah.
your set specifically, it was just like by the second or third song, I was just seeing like the tarps were coming off and it was just like a bunch of dudes with like tattoos or not, and I think half the band at your point was like shirtless as well, and it was like all these like shirtless men piling up for King Nine lyrics, which was just hilarious to me. Just on the topic of that set, does anything stand out to you when you think back on that?
I I actually think back about that specific like occurrence because there is like, you know, you could break it down any way you want, but there is like a sort of like jock mentality to it. It's like, oh, it's just a bunch of shirtless guys hitting each other and this and that. And like I get it, but there is like a sense of like beauty in all of this where
Oh
yeah,
yes.
it is just a bunch of shirtless guys beating the fuck out of each other and like, but that's cool. Like I don't give a fuck if you want to like classify it in some like these are just fucking, you know, idiot jock whatever the fuck. It's awesome. Everybody can do it. I don't give a fuck who you are. You don't have to be some big meathead. You could be fucking 5 foot nothing and weigh 80 pounds and still be fucking going crazy. Do whatever, man. Like
Right.
there is like beauty to that. And there is like a very like sense of like community in that. As stupid as it sounds, there really is like this like cool thing about it because I think about shows when I was really young and I think about how it was. I saw Neglect, which is an old Long Island band they did a reunion in 2005, and I saw it. And I was 15, I guess,
Right.
and it was the hottest show I'd ever been in. And no exaggeration, the Brian, the singer of Neglect, passed out on stage during the
Oh,
set. They brought him outside. They like let him chill for 20 minutes, and then he went back in and finished the set. Like it was
that's so sick.
yeah. Also, the show was already hot because the show was Neglect, Ice Pick, which was like just became a thing. Like Jamie Josta didn't even have Ice Pick songs written yet because Ice Pick at the time was a fucking cover band. He
Okay.
just did the one Ice Pick. Oh no, sorry, there was 2 Ice Pick songs.
Mm.
He did Born to Crush You, which is straight up an amazing song, and I don't think anybody even knows this, but they did Born to Crush You, and they did the fucking Ice-T, whatever the fuck song. I forget what the hell it's called, but
Sure. Ice-T needs to be
so
on an Ice Pick song. That's a match made in
yeah,
heaven.
so so it was Ice Pick, No Redeeming Social Value, and it's like 2 others I can't remember. I think the Berserkers were like a punk band from Long Island, but the show was already hot. The show was already fucking packed, way oversold, like couldn't move, ridiculously hot. And he came in, everybody like crowd surfed him, and he was in a body bag, and they like crowd surfed him from the front door to the stage and like put the body bag down, and they started playing Dig It, and he like came out of the body bag. It was fucking awesome. But I know that fucking body bag had to be 1,000
Oh
degrees when he
yeah.
was in.
Just like cooking him in like aluminum foil, if anything.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god. But yeah, but back to what I was saying, like those memories will stick with you forever
Totally.
because dude, it was a bunch of like ex-military dudes beating the shit out of each other on Long Island. I was 15 years old and I was like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on, but this is the coolest thing
Right.
ever. And I liked Neglect a lot when I was younger, and I thought that part was cool, but, like, seeing that was so much cooler to me, and, like, being a part of that was so much cooler to me,
Hmm.
and, like, I hope that at some point people can reminisce about shows like that when they were young, like, and be like, oh, do you remember this? Like, I was so crazy. So that is my takeaway from that whole set, and I really hope other people have the same thought about
Mhm.
it.
Just because, like, I was filming you guys, and like, I also started this podcast a little bit later. Something that you said as I was like rewatching it, and like, it wasn't like I rewatched it and then I thought about it. Like, when you said it, that was something that like stuck with me. And like, I think that there are certain vocalists in hardcore that are known for like, this is the person that says a lot of really like insightful shit, or passionate stuff in between songs. And then there's people that are kind of like, sometimes that just sparks. And I don't know where you think that you fall on that scale, but and this is very relevant to me personally because I just turned 30 like a couple of weeks ago, and you were just talking about like, I think you were asking who was 30 in the room, and at the time of filming you guys, I think I must have been like 26 or 27, but you were just saying how like it's cool to see people in 30 plus who are still in hardcore and don't just like view this thing that we do as like for kids, or like, oh, I did that shit in high school. And again, there's just like nuances to me now where it's like, if anything, I'm like the most invested that I've ever been, and like I look at the next 10 years of my life as like, this is where I'm putting all like my chips and my energy when it comes to like doing this podcast, filming, playing in bands. Um, Anything that, like, because you could have just said that on stage because it felt relevant. I don't know if you've thought about that or have any follow up things that you would like to add to that subject, because you're definitely 30 plus at this point as well. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
get you out for your age.
It's fine. I'm 33 now, and I've been doing this since I was fucking 13 years old. So it has been part of my life for fucking 20 years.
Yeah.
But there's this thing, and it was very popular to do on Long Island until my generation, until my generation of kids were involved in hardcore, and that was like, you're in hardcore for like 4 or 5 years, and then you decide that you like whatever fucking shit you like now that's like post hardcore. It's not really hardcore, and then you just like fall away from it, and you pretend like you're so much better than that, and you're above hardcore, and you're this and you're that, and that shit is whack. If that's how you are, I love all the other music. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like having this attitude that you're like, oh, I was never really a part of that. I didn't care about that.
Hmm.
That shit is so lame, man. Think about think about your life as a fucking human being and having zero dedication to something. You're just floating through and finding what the next thing you fucking think is cool. You're not like, hey, I found this thing that I love and I'm going to invest my time and energy into it. And you see it a lot, especially now online. Like, people talk all sorts of wild shit about like fucking idiots. Like, this is why I'm not a part of this. This is good fucking riddance. I don't give a fuck. Don't come around then. You never were a part of it anyways, if that's how you're talking about it.
Hmm.
And there's this there is this just like urge that people have to just like abandon things they cared about when they were younger. And that is just so fucking lame. So it's like, what are you abandoning? You're abandoning this thing you cared about when you were younger to do what? Go to work? Like, I don't even understand like what the fuck you're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you have this like this mentality that's so anti like enjoyment. It's so whack.
Yeah.
And I
Anti-enjoyment to the things that you found passion in, but now are like, oh, like I can't talk about that because I'm like trying to enjoy the after hours work party or whatever the fuck. That's probably
fuck yourself.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so whack, and it's like, I see behind you, there's the fucking the sword from Halo. Like, I see Spider-Man. Like, dude, those things make you happy. Who gives a fuck? Who cares? I love video games. I don't care. I'm gonna be fucking 50 and being like, oh yeah, I played this fucking thing. I don't give a shit.
Right.
Those are the things that make me happy, and you're never gonna like convince me otherwise. It's like the same old like, oh, that's for kids. That's for kids. It's like, why is it for like, what do you just not like to enjoy things? Like, you just fucking go work, smoke a cigarette, come home, and you're miserable. Cool. I never want to have that fucking life.
Right.
But people love to stand up on a pedestal from that point of view and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm above this. I'm above all of you." And it's like you're not. You're so lame. You have
Yeah.
nothing in your life that you were that passionate about. And there are times I know that people get this they feel like this like almost like shame, when somebody, especially as if you're younger and you're not really sure about a lot of things, and then you hear somebody talk about what you care about, whether it be fucking comic books, hardcore, anything, and that they talk down about it like it's whack.
Mm.
That is the time that you just need to understand that, like, dude, dig your fucking heels in. Dig your heels in and be like, "Fuck you, this is what I like. I
Yeah.
don't care. You can tell me I'm a fucking dork, loser, asshole, whatever the fuck you want. This is my shit, and I do not give a fuck."
Yeah.
And that is so goddamn important in anything, and not
Yes.
just hardcore, but especially hardcore, but in anything.
Totally.
Just fucking be about it.
Yeah, like I love the I totally agree with you on the mantra of like of digging your heels, and it's kind of that thing where it's like when you are actually passionate about something and you're in like maybe a social setting that maybe well it could still be hardcore or not, but you're kind of like not overly talking about it, but in the past I used to be like, "Oh, sorry I'm talking so much about, Halo or, whatever it is that
Yeah.
I'm still passionate about if not more today." But you start to like you apologize and devalue what you're saying. But it's like if that's your shit, like talk about your shit. Like, and there was almost like a weird thing that I would see in hardcore where it's like if someone's being like overbearing to a degree, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. And like that was the tagline to kind of be like, I actually don't give a fuck about this.
Yeah.
But I don't know. At the end of the day, I think like whether you love a certain band or you love like a subculture or something like that, like I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to people about hardcore, but then also getting to talk to them about like their passions behind cooking or like snowboarding or whatever it is. Like I've gotten comments on other podcasts being like, "What the fuck is with this like bev check shit?" Like I skip over that shit the minute it happens. But I'm like, that shit I love. Like I got fucking mounds of liquid death behind me and just random things that I see at a grocery store. I'm like, I need to try this, but that's just like my thing. And I don't know. It's so important to like wear the shit that you're passionate about on your sleeve. I think that's why we all like rep band shirts all the time, because it's like this is our uniform to a degree, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, if you ever talk to anybody about a very specific topic and they're not passionate, like no one wants to have a conversation with somebody in depth about something they're not passionate about. Who
Right.
gives a fuck? I don't want to hear you. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't like baseball, why the fuck would I listen to you talk about baseball for 2 hours? It's
Right.
like that. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
So it's like, just be passionate about what you love, and don't worry about what the fuck other people think, because people will come along who feel the same way,
Mhm.
and those are the people that you're going to be friends with for the rest of your life. Those are the people that you're going to be able to identify with on like all these different levels because of their passion for the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that, like, this point circles back to that earlier thing that we are saying is, like, this is probably the tip of the iceberg of a lot of new people discovering hardcore, and there's, like, definitely gonna be a lot of people that are gonna maybe be a 6-month face and then bounce, but there will be people that discover it and have, like, the true authentic experience of, like, I'm gonna go to a show, get my ass beat, and then love it, and then go travel for a fest, and then start a band, and then come on Spencer's podcast and talk about my whole origin story. Um, like, I think this topic specifically has come up on a number of different podcasts, but I think on Angel and Z's episode, you were saying like hardcore is for everyone at face value, and I think those last three words at face value were the thing that helped make it click and make sense, because um, I do agree that like accessibility and for people to be able to discover this, whether it's through podcasts or different things, is good. But at the same time, it shouldn't just guarantee this like blissful like experience for people, because it isn't for everyone on a longevity aspect. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously I very much agree with that, and there there is like a you want everybody to be able to be like, I'm gonna go to a hardcore show. Like I like these hardcore bands and all this shit. But there is this sense where it's like not everybody does belong here. And it's shitty because there's no other fucking kind of music that's like this.
Hmm.
But there's no other kind of music that entails all the things that this entails. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's like, maybe you don't belong here. A lot of people don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. But having this attitude of like, well, it's for fucking everybody. Like, sure, it's for everybody, but it doesn't mean that everybody belongs. You know, there's a lot of people that'll come in that do shitty things, and they're, you know, if you have a really shitty code of ethics and you come into hardcore, you're not going to stick around long.
Hmm.
People aren't going to trust you. People aren't going to be friends with you. You can go do that at a fucking EDM show, whatever the fuck. You can go do that there, and no one's going to have any sort of opinion or care or like, be like this guy doesn't belong. It's like no, punk and hardcore have ethics for a reason. It's music based on ethics. It's music based on that. And it's just like you can't have you can't have one without the other. Hardcore music, you're there's going to be this like ethics and all these other things that are built into it. And it's like, and if you don't fucking want to follow that or you don't want to abide by that, fucking see you later.
Right.
You know, I know a lot of people don't want to glorify like violence or anything like that, but like the reality is like this is a violent thing,
Hmm.
and we all care about each other and we're all in it together, you know. But occasionally, like there are violent things and crazy things that don't happen in a normal everyday life, and like that shit's not for everybody. I fucking get it. I get it. It's not for everybody, but it's just the way it is, man. Like, you know, there will be, and I can see it coming now. I'm sure you probably see the same thing. There will be tons of normal people that come to shows that start fights and do whatever, and they get beat the fuck up, and they won't understand that, okay, no one at the show likes you now because you decided to swing at somebody for no reason. Then you got beat up and kicked out, and you're all confused. And then you go online and you're like, the hardcore's fucking stupid, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no, we just you act like a moron, and we don't like that.
Right.
So we don't want you here.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And
And either
yeah, I just
people will
think
be course corrected and be and have and hopefully have enough self-awareness to be like, yeah, I was out of line doing that, like I didn't know better, like I deserve the ass whooping. And
yeah,
but I
yeah,
feel like that's more like a 10 to 15% versus what we see now, where someone
absolutely.
gets something happen at a show and they will just like just try to be a martyr on the internet and try to
Oh
rally around
yeah,
people.
100%.
And most of the time I see, the masses of the community who get it to be like, no, you're a fucking clown, like get out of here.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, you see it all in the fucking comments on the TV video, but you'll fucking see tons of people be like, "This is fucking bullshit. This is fucking assault and whatever nonsense." And it's just like, first off, yeah, was it fucking stupid? Yeah, probably.
A
But we're
thousand
all
percent,
idiots.
yes.
Yeah, so it's like we're all idiots though, and if fucking me and my friends want to throw a TV at each other, like fuck it, who cares?
Hmm.
And the reality is like the whole room, it has maybe not the understanding they're going to get hit with a fucking CRTV, but they will have some level of understanding of like, hey man, fucking anything can happen. I don't fucking know. Somebody
Right.
could stage dive on you and break your fucking neck. Like it could just shit can happen, but I think there's that understanding there that outside people don't have. They
Hmm.
immediately are like, I would have fucking sued or I would have whatever nonsense they want to fucking talk
Hmm.
about. But it's just if you get it, you get it. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. And like it goes into that aspect of like, oh, are we just doing this to be violent or that, or we're just doing it to be ridiculous? But some people honestly just get so like Corey, who sings for Move, he's been on the podcast before. He's like, I'm genuinely front flipping on stage for Vane because their music makes me want to do that. It's not like, oh, I'm just gonna do this thing so I can, have like be the mosh gold star of the evening or anything like that. It's like the music makes you Yeah, I think I tweeted after the whole thing. I'm like, don't act responsible during the King Nine intro challenge impossible, because even going back to Wild Rose, when you guys played that like I felt like I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it, just seeing the whole room bouncing during that. It's like, yeah, of course. Like of course the music is going to like heighten like the aggression, the like uh intensity of everything that you're feeling. And you know, like 9 times out of 10, if there's someone that gets a broken nose or gets hit, like, you know, there's enough people hopefully that are in the mix of it to be able to like, okay, like let's move this person out of the kill zone, so to speak, and let's
Yeah,
help them out and assess the situation. But to see so many people just take things to the extreme because they saw it on Barstool Sports is crazy.
yeah, it is fucking crazy, and it's like, dude, and there isn't many things in life now that you can do that are like an extreme, you know,
Hmm.
and being able to like go to a hardcore show and like basically put yourself in harm's way for 3 hours and be like, this is fucking crazy. You're like defending yourself, like, man, that shit's awesome. I don't care. That shit is fucking awesome. And then there, you know, again, like obviously this isn't like, oh, people are just trying to hurt each other. Yeah, sometimes they are, but it's like the whole like just like the act of everything and like being able to just like, you know, be in that scenario and have all your fucking senses heightened and be like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
Hmm.
can't really do that in a lot of things now, and especially with the way things are, you know, and the way they're going with like how venues work and how they don't want this and they don't want that, and then to be able to have just a real ass hardcore show is it's like a fucking, you know, diamond in the rough. It's awesome.
Hmm.
It's so cool to just have this thing that's like so just rare and
Yeah.
like crazy. And you know, if someone a normal person walks into it, I mean, I'm sure you guys you see a normal fucking person just kind of stumble into a hardcore show and they're like, the fuck are these kids doing? And it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
it's awesome. It's
Hmm.
fucking awesome. It's insane and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And the, I don't think any, that's the whole point of this. Nobody wants to lose that like insaneness of all that because that's what makes this shit awesome.
Right. Yeah. And to tie everything together to an earlier point where we were saying how like, you know, someone could be like, "Oh, it's just all these dudes just taking their shirts off to King Nine." It's like there's so much different styles of hardcore that you can get that like if you're just a little mosh hesitant, like maybe for a certain band you're like, I'm standing at the front for this band, but when King Nine's playing, I'm maybe, you know, a ways back or things like that. Like I'm still
Yeah.
gonna watch them play, but like I'm sure the people in the back of FYA watching you guys versus right at the front, like I I would be I know that the experiences are way different because when you're in like the actual trenches and in the warfare and you're feeling all those things happening and have to have your spidey senses going at all times versus like you're just being in the back and just kind of like watching, like the experiences are totally different for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Hmm. So you brought up the TV scenario. So um, talk to me about that from your perspective, because this is one of those things where something that gains virality in hardcore, it's usually two, at least in my perspective, there's almost like two parties, and it's like it is everyone's like, oh, King Nine the TV, but I'm like, it was the Chisel who was playing. So it's almost the same as when everyone was talking about the Scowl Sonic you know, DIY show, but it was
Yes.
like, oh, well, like Gel was the one that set that up. So from your perspective, like at least in the video, it doesn't look like, okay, it's time for the TV time. It was just like the TV's here and this is so sick that it's time to Hulk smash this. So any behind the scenes that you want to share there?
Well, you want to know something very funny? Um,
Always.
so the fest ended, Cold World got done playing, and the after show was the after show started an hour after Cold World ended.
Hmm.
Our flights the next morning were at 7 a.m. and the show ended, and I was like, ah, man, I do want to see the Chisel and War Hungry again, but I'm kind of tired. We like left the venue, and I was like, I think I'm just gonna fucking go to the hotel. And I went to the hotel. I was not even at the fucking after show. And my band that was still there, because Rudder, our drummer, was not there either. They were all so fucking drunk, and so was the Chisel, that they were just like, "You gotta play the intro before we play," and just being fucking idiots.
Sure.
They John, who plays guitar, and he played drums and backtrack. John was like, "I'll play drums," and Martine from Criminal Instinct, God's Hate and Terror was like, "Yeah, I'll play guitar."
Yeah.
So that's what's up there. It's Chris and Gian on guitar normally, John on drums, Martine playing guitar, and Cal, who sings in the Chisel, singing. And they're just playing the intro because they're just drunk and they're like, "Oh, let's do it." And they found a TV on the side of the road and decided to put it in the fucking van and brought it on stage. And then I don't know what the fuck happened. And like, honestly, alcohol is completely to thank for that entire situation, because that's really what it was. Every
Right.
single person involved was smashed beyond belief, and they were just like, "Yeah, fuck it, throw the TV."
Yeah.
Another funny part about this is, so I woke up. I was asleep when this shit happened.
Oh,
I woke up.
no.
I had no fucking clue any of this was going
Yeah.
on. I woke up, looked at my phone. I saw a couple pictures. I was like, "Oh, that's funny." And then I like actually got up out of bed and I looked around the hotel room. Our flight is at 7 a.m. and I woke up and it was like 5:30. And I
So
was
you
like,
got to get going. You got to be there at least at 6.
yeah, and I had to drop off a rental car.
Oh,
But I
shit.
woke up and no one was in the hotel room. I called them and they were like, "Oh, we're still at the bar." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, man. You want to go to the airport so we can leave?"
Right.
So yeah, alcohol is completely to thank for whatever the fuck comes of this fucking TV.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. Sure, the fucking video and all that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so wild to think that there's some person out in Florida who was like, man, I just got to get rid of this TV. Maybe I'll just put it on the side of the road and someone will grab it. Someone will like have their like N64 like setup or whatever. No, it just became like a big viral hit in our community, which is hilarious.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just hilarious how like so like I think you can piece together like who's throwing the TV after it's been thrown in the pit, but like I don't know the dude who actually threw it off stage. I don't know if that's like a Chisel member or someone else, or if we want to keep that person's identity.
Well, you know what? No, I'll say it because he plays in the Chisel.
Okay.
He didn't hurt anybody. Nothing happened. It just hit the fucking ground. So
Right.
he plays in the Chisel. He played in a band called Ricks too from France. It's just he's awesome.
Yes.
He's the fucking man. But yeah, he's a fucking nut job and just he's great.
So like breaking down the why, like so many people have been talking about the intro, like the King 9 intro, like it's that intense to with mixed with a bit of alcohol can make someone do that, as well as like all the other, I'm sure, crazy experiences that you've seen off of playing just like that one song. Why do you think that intro is so good?
I don't know. So it's like I love it, obviously, and it's like I don't know. I don't know if it's the tempo of it, of the just like dun 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 like that. I don't know what the fuck it is, but for some reason, everybody fucking loves it. And the another funny part about this is we actually didn't play our own intro at FYA at all. It got played twice, and we didn't play it either time because Criminal Instinct played our intro, and we played the Criminal Instinct intro at FYA.
Yeah.
So
I heard
they
you swap.
played that at the actual fest. And then whatever version of King 9 and the Chisel and Criminal Instinct, amalgamated, played the intro at the fucking after show. I was never on stage for 1 second of our intro during
Oh my gosh,
the
that's
festival.
so funny. So is the lesson learned to never not play the intro? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, fuck. We didn't play it, and it's all over the fucking internet. So maybe we just shouldn't play it.
I almost think that if you guys played it and maybe the criminal instinct swap didn't happen and then the chisel did, I don't think that would be as special. Like, I think it's cooler that you guys did
Yeah.
it and then like two other bands did it and they had crazy reactions to it.
Yeah. It is. It's fucking cool, man. You know, there's like a, it's like, oh, it's not like really a song. It's like it's just an intro. It's just and it's like people just want to see the intro. But like the reality is a people don't just want to see the intro, but also like I don't know, it's fucking cool. It's a fucking quick, cool, heavy song.
Hmm.
Everybody fucking has fun. It's one of those things too that like obviously over the years it's just like gained steam. Like it never it always gets crazier, 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 crazier. Like every time we play it. So it's like it's not something that we're ever like, ah, maybe we shouldn't play it anymore. Because there was a period of time it was never recorded. We used to play it and it was an intro we wrote and we never recorded it for like 5 years.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
so we would play it and it would be like one of those things where it's like, oh, like you gotta see them to hear this fucking
Yeah,
thing they
if
play.
you know kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was the second United Blood we ever played. So we had been a band for like 4 years or something like that. And we were like, yo, this will be the last time we play this. Like, we'll play this and we'll never play it again. And then we played it. And then I was like, the next show we played, I was like, we have to play. Why are we not going to play that? And then we were just like, all right, fuck it. We're just going to keep playing. But
To
yeah, so
think
it's like,
that there was even a second for you to be like, maybe we should just shelf it, because then we wouldn't
yeah,
have what we have today.
yeah, exactly. It's funny too because we had gotten this big argument over like whether or not we should record it for like kind of a similar reason,
Hmm.
and we're still split on it. Obviously, it's out there; you can go listen to it, but we're still kind of split on like whether we should have done it or not. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's a fucking cool thing. I think it's something not the coolest thing we've done, but it's the thing that people know us the most for. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
which whatever, dude. Everybody wants to fucking have fun and jump around, and it's cool being in an environment where everybody wants to participate in something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a god tier intro in my books, and that's very, very cool to see. Um, so another thing that's very intriguing to me, which is not hardcore related, but you've brought it up a couple times on our podcast, is you're an iron worker. So when did, I guess, like the pursuit of that career or that profession or that trade come into the picture for you? Have you always wanted to do that, or did that come later in life?
Dude, it's such a like there's nothing behind it. I stopped touring. I worked in a fabric warehouse for like a year and a little bit,
Hmm.
and I was making like no money. And Rudder, the drummer of King Nine, just like texted our group chat and was like, "Hey," because at this point, this is 7.5 years ago or something like that. He was like, "Yo, the ironworkers are taking applications because like a lot of people that were in our like daily group chat didn't have like careers or anything like that. So, in New York City, a union labor job is a fucking good job. You make a living wage. You do well for yourself." And he just texted our chat and was like, "Hey, structural ironworkers are taking apprentices this year. Like they're gonna have applications at this time, whatever." And I was like, "Okay." And I just went and got an application and took the test and got in and have been doing it for fucking 7+ years now. And
Mm.
that's just that. There's like, there's a lot of lineage for most ironworkers. And it's kind of cool, honestly. It is really cool. Like it's always like, oh, my father was an ironworker, my grandfather was an ironworker, and it spans back 60, 80 years
Oh
of
wow.
ironworking. And
Yeah.
it's
But
like
but
that's how it
yours,
is.
but no one in your family has been an iron worker
Now,
before. Okay.
I am like an outlier.
Okay.
It's really weird because when people ask me, guys will be on the job and you're bullshit with something like, oh, how'd you get in the business? And it's like, I just took the test. And they're like, you don't know anybody. Like, no, I don't know anybody. And they're
Yeah.
like,
Who's your dad?
no
Like no
family.
one you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, your father's not in the business, your grandfather? I'm like, no,
Right.
I just took the test and now I'm doing this. Like,
Mhm.
so it is like a weird way to get into it. But yeah, dude, I took it, did it. When the first year I worked, I was on the Verrazano Bridge and I was like, this is not easy. This kind of sucks, but maybe it'll get better. And it did. So,
Mm. Yeah.
it's fine.
I think I don't know if this is a thing with you're a couple of years older than me, but like I don't know if this is a thing with like I guess our generation or like that kind of span where there was like because my dad like he's a VP at like a trucking company, and then my grandpa was at another trucking company as well. And it was always like this thing. It was like, oh, when are you? And there was this weird thing in my head. I'm like, I'm never gonna work there. I'm never. And like lo and behold, I ended up like working in the like I was working in the marketing department because I have like a video background and all that. But I was like, there was such a like a distaste for following the quote unquote family tradition of whatever industry you're partaking in. But you know, hardcore and like playing music and all that, like none of my family has any really like background in that. So it's like kind of the same as being an outlier. But I don't know if that's like a generational thing because I do have friends that followed in the footsteps of being able to do something that their parents did, but I have seen a lot more people like who have discovered a passion or started to do something totally outside of that and started to pave their own way.
I think a lot of that has to do with like access to information because our parents' generation and the generation after them, like they might not have really had too much access to be like, oh, there's this thing that I wouldn't have known about that I'm like super interested in now and I'm passionate about because I just have all of this information on it and I read about it and it seems really cool. Like they don't have that. So
Right.
it's just like, or they didn't have that.
Yeah.
So I think that our generation is able to just see like there are so many different things that you can do and you have the ability to like teach yourself how to do them and get really good at them and do all
Right.
this shit that's like, you know, fucking you could kind of do whatever. If you want to fucking put your time in and figure it out, you can kind of do whatever the hell you want. And like,
Hmm.
you know, my family used to be the caretaker of a cemetery. Like that's what my grandfather did.
Okay.
And and that was like passed down. That was like a thing that was passed down
Hmm.
to him. And then my father was like my father's father was the caretaker of the cemetery. He died when my father was really young. My father was a fucking teenager, and he was like, "Okay, well, I don't know how to do this because it was never really passed down to me." And he just decided to fucking do something else, and it's just like he kind of had no choice, but he also didn't have information. Like he could have
Right.
fucking done a number of things if he had the fucking internet. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like mostly what it is. It's just like access to information and like, I think that has some positives and negatives because it leads people to want to strive for this like big thing where like I'm gonna be fucking an influencer, like whatever nonsense, they want to like have that like upper echelon they want to get into instead of like their generation where it's like, well, I just want a good job and want to be able to provide for my family. Like,
Right.
I think there's like this disconnect, but yeah, I really think that's like, I think you're right. I think that there is a bigger um, difference in like career paths, generation to generation now than there ever has been.
Yeah, I think there's definitely I'm a little scared personally because like there's like I grew up on YouTube and watching a lot of different things and I'm still plugged into different things that aren't just like the like fat like YouTube fast food, just like stuff that's just like for clickbait and all like there's certain creators and people that I've followed over the years that actually give me like insightful information into like the creative stuff that I'm doing, whether they have like any ties to hardcore or not. But like now it's just weird hearing that like every like 8 to 11-year-old across the country is like, I want to be a influencer. I want to be a TikTok person. I'm like, that shit is scary because like the whole thing, in my opinion, when it comes to whatever you do creatively, it's like you might be able to like do all this stuff and you might get a little bit, but very few people can actually like make it into a living. Like very few bands are even able to like make it actually viable for them to tour all year round or to do like to be able to have that aspect of their life to pay certain bills. So it's wild that people have this like, oh, because I follow a certain like some brothers or a certain influencer, it's like that will happen. and there is a grit to like being able to grind and do some of that, but like it's like to devalue like trades or like other jobs like that where some of those people might be passionate about it is a little freaky to me personally.
I think that it also like represents like an easy path. People think like, oh, you just film yourself,
Right.
and that's like you make, you know what I mean. I think it represents like a very easy path to being rich or whatever the fuck. But I always think about this stuff in terms of like generation to generation, and I think that we're both, 30 plus years old. I think that as you get older, everybody does the same thing to every generation. They look at what they're doing now and they're like, oh, they're fucked. They're fucked. And it's, when we were fucking kids and our parents saw us on the internet all the time and you're fucking on the computer at home, fucking whatever, playing Counter Strike for fucking 10 hours a day.
Yeah,
It's like
RuneScape,
your parents
whatever the
probably
fuck.
looked at
Yeah.
you. Yeah, their parents probably looked at you and they probably said the same thing. They're probably like, "Ugh, this generation's fucked. They're talking sitting behind the computer." And then their fucking parents probably did the same shit to them when they were
Right.
like, oh, the music they're listening to. I feel like there's this thing that happens like generation to generation where like the generation that is exiting their childhood believes that there is like this like impending doom that's coming for the next generation of kids. And like whether or not it's true, I don't know, but I do think that that is like something that people tend to like they I think we do it as you get older without really thinking, like
Sure.
I see the same thing you see. I think the same thing, like, oh, all these fucking kids are like fucking want to be like this and that. But like I don't know. Maybe fucking our parents' generation or their parents' generation was like, oh, all these fucking people see these rock stars up on stage, and that's all they want to be. They don't want to
Mhm.
fucking work, and it's like, uh,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, someone said once where it's like people that complain about like millennials or whatever generation that they're talking about. It's like, well, who's the generation that raised those kids? Yours.
Yeah,
Nine
yeah,
times out of
exactly.
10,
It's
right?
always the problem. Yeah,
Right.
it's always the problem. It's like even when the fucking TV first came out, people were like, "Ah, they have a fucking TV and they're not leaving, they're not doing this," and it's just like, oh yeah, a TV is ruining society. Like, what are we
Right.
talking about?
And even like everyone's like sitting on their phones on the subway and not talking to the fellow passengers. It's like cut to everyone reading the newspaper and not communicating with one another.
Well, I've been taking the train a long time. I've been taking the train since before I had a phone, since before phones were a thing. I can't remember a time where people were just sitting on the train like, "Oh, how's it going today?" And nobody fucking did that. So I don't know if people just like have this like fantasy in their head that
Hmm.
like, they're it's just like the good old days shit. It's like,
Yeah.
things used to be different. It's like, cool. You also fucking lived in a completely different world than we live in right now,
Hmm.
and it could never be the same. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I've heard, I think like the optimistic side of me and something I heard on a podcast where it's like as technology is just like accelerating at like such a fast rate, like there might be a world that certain jobs are just like replaced, by technology and it's automated and it allows people just to have more creative suited jobs because like we've seen things like AI generated things, but I feel like that's very like it's just a blip versus like, oh, this is gonna like replace all these graphic designers and all these things. But like I do like the idea of being able to see like kind of go with and see where it goes, but at the same time it's like you know I don't think iron workers are going anywhere because even if it's like someone's coming up with a robot to be able to do that, like there's still like I personally would bet on any amount of human error that would go into building something versus a robot which could fluctuate like here or there.
100%.
Hmm.
There are a lot of things that come out like, there's like a saying when you, especially with old timers, when you go to do something and you like, when you're younger, you think like you can do things like one way, like, oh, maybe I can do it like this. And they're all old timers. They always will be like 100 years. And they say that because We've been our local has been ironworking for 100 years. And you think you could just fucking come up with a new way to do it now? It's been the same way for 100 fucking years with slight technological advances, like bolts instead of rivets. And like, that's kind of it. So it's like, it's a very old trade, and a lot of trades are very old trades, and they're yes, I'm sure at some point some of this stuff can be automated, but I truly don't think that most of it can. And I think I have kind of an unpopular opinion about this, but I think that there is a point that we're coming to where I think that like the reeling in of like AI and things like that is going to start to happen. I think that's going to go a little further, and then it's going to reel in a little bit because there are just things that you can't do. Like just there, it's not worth it for you to try to automate driving a fucking car because it clearly doesn't fucking work. Like
Right.
it clearly has tons of fucking problems. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like reaction timing and all that shit. Like computers fuck up. People do too. Of course
Mhm.
they do. But like, I don't know, man. I think that there is um yeah, I think there's just like a point that we're coming to that's gonna kind of be like like a fork in the road, whether it's like we just go fully into it or we do like be like, maybe we shouldn't fucking do
Yeah.
this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I just think it's like, just the way the natural progression of things obviously would say otherwise, but I think something's got to give at some point.
Yeah, and I don't think you're totally out to lunch with that opinion because I do think it's like I think anything like I think that we have just seen movies like I don't know if you notice like you're pointing out things in my background, but I don't know like I have a DeLorean print up here, Back to
Okay,
the
I can
Future.
see it now. I
I have
couldn't
a
tell what it
Flux
was.
capacitor tattooed on my
But,
wrist.
okay.
So like the whole like time travel and the future and all that has just been something that like that's one of my favorite movies. But I think we as humans like we see a lot of that as far as like the what could be's, and then the minute that we have a taste of that or even like a sniff of it, it's like oh, like let's do it right now. But it's like clearly we do not have self-driving anythings at scale and perfected. So like to even, to echo your point of like not only like a car that maybe like is picking you up and taking you somewhere, like I'm freaked out about the self-driving semi trucks that like they're trying to do. I'm like,
Oh
have you
yeah, I
seen a
mean,
semi truck go out of control because of weather or a driver is asleep
yeah,
at the wheel? That shit, it's like
yeah.
let alone killing one person, but killing like dozens of people,
I
depending
mean,
on the
I mean,
situation.
dude, look at the oh my god, I'm forgetting their name. The junior hockey team. The I'm forgetting their name, but you know what I'm talking about. That their bus got fucking hit by a semi,
Hmm.
and like obviously that was manned by somebody, and it's a tragic story, but it's like okay, now take that and put a computer behind it,
Yeah.
and it's like that shit's gonna happen more often than not because yes, of course the computer is like, oh well, it's a computer, it can't fuck up, and it's like I guarantee you that computer is gonna fuck up more than somebody who has 15 years behind the wheel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I just think, and I also think that like we can only go so far subsidizing people's jobs. What the fuck are you gonna do? You're just gonna say, oh well, trucking doesn't exist anymore.
Hmm.
So, everybody who is a trucker, go fucking find something else to do. And it's like, yeah, maybe that will happen over time, but it can't just happen immediately. That would fucking crash the economy. It would create a huge problem. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And like obviously the people who want these things to happen stand to benefit the most from them. But I,
That's
I
the
think
biggest thing.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, I think at some point like there just has to be like a somebody has to put their foot down almost and be like, we can't do this. Like just enough is enough. We don't need to fucking to be automating everything and doing it. Like it just doesn't need to happen, I think. And it's like I know I sound like a fucking like I'm 80 years old, like working in a fucking coal mine, but like at some point, like technology doesn't have to take away every single job there's ever fucking been.
Right.
because that's like the way it's going. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
technology just replaces job after job after job after job, and it's like, what the fuck are you going to be left with? You know, like
Yeah.
not too long ago, like there used to be toll booths all around the New York City. There's fucking 21 bridges in New York. There used to be toll booths on most of them. There's no toll booths anymore. They all got taken out. Every person who was a toll booth operator lost their job. And
Mm.
like, the job sucks, but it was a decent paying job and it provided people's families and like now what? And
Right.
then it's like, okay, now that happened. Guarantee you the next thing to go is going to be fucking parking, meter maids, the people who do give out parking tickets.
Mm.
No one likes them, but that job is a job and somebody has to fucking do it and they get paid and they
Yeah.
provide for their family with it. It's like, I guarantee you, give it fucking 2 or 3 years, it's just going to be a camera hooked up to a car that scans license plates, which exists
That
now.
happens in Calgary actually. There's a
Yeah, and it just
person
fucking
driving a car with it looks like an overhead hatch, but there's like
yeah,
15
the two,
cameras and they're just going
yeah,
and pop, 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 pop. So like
yeah, they just snap whatever
and
cars
then
need to
like
get
send it
tickets.
in the email and blah blah blah. That's it.
Yeah. Dude, I guarantee you that's gonna happen fucking everywhere because it's like, oh, we can eliminate 10,000 fucking jobs. See ya.
Hmm.
Because the city needs to make more money. And it's just like, I don't know, man. Some shit, sure, it's gonna be automated. There's nothing you can do, but I just it sucks
Yeah.
because then there's gonna be more and more and more and more people that don't have fucking jobs.
Right.
And then what the fuck are we gonna do?
Yeah. Like first off, I did not anticipate to hit on this shit in our conversation, but it's been very interesting because it's like, yeah, some people listening like can be like, oh yeah, it's great that like I don't have to go stand in line at McDonald's. I can just like either order on my app or I can like hit the fucking screen and then it will like come out to me. But like at the same time, like that person that maybe that's taking out I fear like just removing human interaction and like in those kind of scenarios is like almost like having a negative effect on like making it easier and easier to not interact with other people in the world on a day-to-day
100%.
basis.
100%. That's a huge part of it, and it's also like whenever I go to places like that that have that, like I make it a point to go to the person. Like I'm
Right.
not doing that. I'm gonna order with you. We're gonna do this the same way we've done it for I don't know how long. I'm not gonna
It
fucking
was funny
touch
on
that
the
thing.
Hardlore episode. You were like, "I'm not ordering through a fucking app."
Exactly.
And
I'm not
jokes
doing it,
aside,
dude.
like it's clear. It's like, yeah, I want to talk to a person who's gonna make my
Yeah,
Big
and
Mac.
it's like honestly, like I'm thinking about it, and it's just like it's not. Yes, like obviously the human interaction thing is something, but it's also like I am thinking about it, like, I don't want you to lose your fucking job. I'm gonna order through you because the more people that order through you, they're gonna get the analytics of everything and be like, "Well, people seem to be ordering through a person more than the fucking computer, so maybe," and it's just like, I don't want that. I don't want to go into every place you go into, you're gonna fucking have to do that. Every place you go into, you're gonna have to, "No, you scan it."
Mhm.
There's a fucking Bill Burr joke about it where it's just like, oh, I didn't know I was on the schedule today. I have to ring up all my own shit, bag my own shit. I have to do all this. It's just like, why the fuck am I coming to you? It's just like, you're like, come
Right.
into my store, you fucking pick it out, you scan it, you pay for it, and get the fuck out. That's like
Right.
how it is. And it's like that shit is so it's the antithesis of like everything that's supposed to be what a community is about. I
Mhm.
don't want to fucking walk into somebody and just go fucking press buttons on a computer, talk to 0 people, and go home every day. But that's what shit's turning into. You go on your fucking phone and you're fucking, oh, I'm gonna order my groceries. I'm gonna order this, and you just are pressing buttons. And it's like, dude, I'm fucking guilty of it. I order fucking Seamless and like, whatever delivery apps all the time. But like, it sucks, man. It
Mhm.
fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks that this is like where we're headed. And again, like I don't want to sound like I'm fucking 80 years old being like back in my day, but it's just like, dude, this is no way to like fucking have any sort of like a sense of like community with people around you.
Mhm.
Like it fucking sucks. Like
Yeah.
I like going into my coffee shop and bullshitting with the people at the coffee shop, the people that work there. They know me. I go in there all the time.
Right.
Like I I like that. I don't like to fucking walk into a place and be like, "Oh, I have it ordered on the fucking app," and I don't talk to anybody. I just walk in and pick it up. Cool. I
Yeah.
saved a whole fucking minute of my life to be just like have to not talk to anybody. Like that shit sucks, man.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not into it.
It's
I think in the next 30 years, I'm gonna have some real struggles in my fucking life.
well, it's very interesting that we're talking about this because like the other day, just having a day, one of those days where it's like you feel like you're just on autopilot, jumping from thing to thing. And I was picking up like lunch for my wife, and the guy like. You know when you go somewhere and it's like the person is being like really, really like friendly and being like, "How's your day?" And you're just like, "I don't want to fucking talk to you." But like
Yeah, yeah,
and then I left there because I'm just giving him the shortest answers to try to give him the cue, like I'm not in that kind of
yeah.
mood. And like he wasn't picking up on it, and he was just like a lovely, Middle Eastern dude. And I walked out of there being like, I'm an asshole. Like, why did I not like try to enter? So it is a reality check, I think, for when you have those there's the intentional community when you go to a hardcore show where you go to like a coffee spot where it's like, oh, these are my people. But you're still gonna have to run into people that is maybe your one and only interaction with them ever in your life. Someone at the grocery store, or like maybe like you get into a little fender bender. Like that is still some interaction, and that could either have a positive impact that maybe helps your day a little bit, or it's gonna be like blow up in a negative way, and then you're just like thinking about that all the time. So yeah, that it's just like for me, it's now I'm just thinking anytime I go to the grocery store based off this conversation, I'm gonna be like, no, I'm gonna get rung up by the person, versus having to do it
Yeah.
myself.
I
And I
mean,
hope people listening to do that as well.
I hope so too, because it really does at least temporarily save some jobs. And I
Mm,
know that's not like what's on everybody's mind right away, but like that is something I think about often. Like
mm,
the more you interact with actual employees of a place, and the more that you utilize an employee for whatever they do, the more likely it is that they keep their job and that they're able to continue to have that job. And yeah, man, it's not ideal
yeah,
the way we're going right now, but I don't know.
yeah.
Uh, who
Well,
knows?
it's wild to think that I was not expecting to hit on the economic state of the world with the vocalist of King Nine so much today, but that's the beauty of this podcast and being able to like have people like yourself on, and have really cool conversations, hardcore or non-hardcore related. Dan, before we start to wrap up the show, I asked the same guest the same outro question before we head towards the close. Off the top of your head, tell me a memorable mosh story that you would like to share. And that could be anything violent, wholesome, happened at a King Nine show, or just any show that you were attending. Anything that's off the top of your head.
uh, the one show I always think of, in like us crazy or whatever, is Bulldoze, or excuse me, not Bulldoze. They played a different show. It was Biohazard and Life of Agony, at a club called the Crazy Donkey on Long Island in 2008. I think it was
Okay.
2008 or maybe 2000. That show was so goddamn fucking crazy. And I remember Bobby Hamill, the second Biohazard started playing, they opened with Shades of Grey, and he was like, because there was a barricade and there was bouncers in between the barricade and stage, and the second they started playing, he was like, "Fuck this shit! Everybody come up on stage! Fuck these bouncers! Get the fuck out of here!" And it was like the craziest, coolest shit ever. And he was just spinning a million miles an hour playing, and it was fucking awesome. It was so fucking cool. Like the whole Biohazard set was so crazy and awesome. And then Life of Agony played. It was the same fucking way. It was packed with people, but just like we're talking about, just like dudes shirts off. I got my fucking nose broken. I remember it. It was so fucking cool though, and I will always remember that show. That's
Mm,
that's one of my favorite shows ever. There wasn't like a specific thing that happened at the show that was like crazy or whatever, but it was fucking awesome. Those two sets back to back was like, it was fucking amazing. It was like
mm.
such a perfect show.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about like all these job things, and I'm sure the people who were hired to do security or bouncing or whatever the fuck were probably like, well, do we even need to be here? But I guess we're getting paid, so maybe we just stand aside.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah. I mean,
know.
fuck it. If they don't want you to fucking be there, just stand to the side, collect the fucking check, and be done with it.
Right. Well, Dan, this has again have been a really, really fun conversation with you. All the links to King Nine stuff and all your shit will be in the description in the show notes. Anything you want to plug, anything you want to say, or anything you want to send the people off with before we go.
I don't have much to plug other than the fact that King Nine will be putting out 2 EPs this year. Mark my words. Other than that, shout out to everybody listening. Shout out to all of our Calgary friends, and yeah, don't decide, don't ditch hardcore because you think you're cool. Just fucking stick with it if you love it.
Love that. I challenge everyone listening to this podcast, whether you're on your way to the grocery store or just left, make sure you're getting your groceries checked out by a person. Maybe it's the King Nine challenge of getting your
Yeah, yeah.
of getting
Hey, you
giving
stop
back to your
using stop
economy.
Yeah, stop using fucking computers. Just fucking go up to a person and use them. It's gonna help. It's gonna help them in the long run. And you're fucking whatever. You spend an extra minute of your time doing it. Who
Yeah,
cares?
and if not, someone might be just around the corner throwing a CRTV at you to punish you. Dan, thank you again for the great convo.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.